Welcome to this brand new lesson and the final lesson that's a part of this particular chapter, where we're going to take a look at a CSS media feature called Prefers-reduced-motion. And this is for people who just don't want a bunch of animation. And this is something that users can turn on from the OS or turn on and off at the OS level. So for instance, just to show you, I'm on Windows 11. If I come over here, hit the Windows key, and I simply type visual effects right there, I can bring this over and we could see right here, animation effects, we can turn this on and off. The browsers will then read that, and we can also read that through JavaScript, which I'll show you exactly how to do, and then adjust our animations to have either no animations or maybe very subtle animations. So that's what we're going to do now, and I'll show you exactly how to do that. So for this one, we're going to use a previous lesson from this course, and if I refresh, you'll see it's kind of like an intro splash animation. There's a lot of animation that happens here, and let's create a simplified version while toggling on and off that setting so that we can, as developers, create a more subtle animation for people who have that request essentially, or that OS setting. So the first thing that we're going to do, as always, is define a match media property. So right here, that right there, it's what you want, like we've done before. And also, by the way, when you open this up, this is what you're going to be seeing. We're not doing any HTML, CSS. It's just strictly modifying the code from that previous lesson so that it includes better animation for people who don't want the said animation. Okay, so what we're going to do is the same exact setup as before, except we're going to be adding the reduced motion into this call. So if I zoom up, we'll say mm.add, open up an object here where the first two settings are going to be exactly the same that we've had in the last couple lessons. So we're going to put is mobile, max width 600, and then 601 right here. And then the new one that we're going to add is reduce motion. Of course, we can call this whatever we want, but this part we do have to specify prefers reduced motion and reduce. Okay, that means they want not a lot of animation, if any. So now at that point, we could put a comma here. We pass in the context, and we open up this object. So what we'll do now is take all of this animation that we have in this timeline-based animation, and we're going to paste that in right around here. But above it, we are going to specify, let's tab this out a second. Above this, we have to destructure to gain access to those three properties that we specified above. So we have is mobile, is desktop, reduce motion, coming from the context.conditions. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to wrap this whole thing inside an if statement. So we're going to say, just because it's a long timeline animation, and we'll just create a more simplified version in the else. So here's what I mean. So we're going to say if reduce motion doesn't equals true, then we're going to go ahead and just simply wrap all this here, and then we're going to have an else way down here at the bottom as well. All right, so let's go ahead and save this as is, and we'll go back to the browser. And right now, because I don't have reduced animation turned on at the OS level, it's going to go ahead and play this, because reduced motion right now, if we console log this, save it, and then open up our F12, our developer console, we'll see false. All right, so that's what we want. However, when I go back to visual settings or effects rather here in Windows, and of course you can use Google just to research how you do this, like on different versions of Windows or Mac OS. So I'm going to turn this off. Now, when you do toggle this off here in Windows, at least, it does take a little bit of time, maybe about 10 to 15 seconds before it will shift. And then now what's going to happen if I refresh, nothing happens because it's set to true and there's nothing in our else statement. So the animations don't play. So now it's simply a matter of just redefining a timeline in this case so that it's greatly reduced in terms of animation. So for that, what we're going to do is first, we're just going to use the GSAP set property. You recall that, where we could just instantly set without animation. Fade 2, we're going to set the opacity to 0 and a scale Y of 1. And then we're just going to have this timeline animation that's greatly simplified. So at this point, there's only 3 different tweens occurring instead of the 6 or so that occur here. And you'll see with these settings, and I'm not going to explain all these because I think you get the point. And you'll see that it's a lot more simplified. So it's just like this. This still may be too much for the purpose, but just understand that this is how you set it up programmatically in such a way that you will greatly benefit those who prefer reduced animation. All right, so with that said, of course, when you have access to reduced motion, you don't have to structure your code in this way where you have a big if-else. You can put, you can use ternary operators, and you can do it at the property level as well, like where you have reduced motion, and you have a question mark, and then you have your 2 values for true and false. So you have a lot of options in terms of how you choose to use this type of coding. So that's going to be it here for the responsive considerations here when using GreenSock animation platform and others. So I'm not going to bother even with the challenge because this stuff is pretty straightforward, and you should have a pretty good grip of how to do it, especially when I go to create the final project here in the next 2 chapters. But in the next chapter, we are going to take a look at Three.js, and Three.js is its own entire world, but I had to include it in this course because it really is an advanced level front-end development technique where we can utilize things like shaders, the GPU, and also 3D environments that we can create, and 3D objects as well. So we're going to take a look at that, and then we'll be wrapping up with the course with the final project at the end. So let's continue on.